Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast. We sit down and dissect the latest and the greatest in film, in particular 2020's best films. Me and Jackson are going to give our top 10 films of the year with some honorable mentions. And speaking of Jackson, he is with me as always, better known as Marshall on Film on Letterboxd, Instagram, and the rest. Jackson, how are you on this fine evening?
Dan Allen movies. I've been... God damn it. 20 in review should just be a blooper reel of you and I struggling to get a recording of an episode together. Oh my goodness. I have been fantastic. Never been better. Cannot wait to tackle the year that was. And what a year. Who would have thought to create a movie podcast in one of the worst years for entertainment in the history of our glorious planet?
What two guys are dumb enough to do that, Jackson?
I don't know. And who's even dumber to still be listening to them 46 episodes in? Dan, could we not have squeezed 4 more movie reviews before we did episode best of 2020? What happened? Where did we go wrong?
Well, technically we should have had 52, no?
No, because we started this in March.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, we've done pretty well because we've also got the bonus episodes, which are about 6 or 7. So I think we've done pretty well. We've crossed over 50. But anyway, top 10.
Enough about us. It's about the top 10 best of 2020. Dan Allen movies for our listeners, for our viewers. Hello there on YouTube. How are we going to structure this?
We're going to give our 5 honorable mentions, or as many as you want to give, at the top. And then we're going to go 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, all the way down to number 1. How does that sound?
It's tennis, right? You're going to serve. I'm going to hit it back. We're going to go 10, 10, 9, 9. Yep.
It's going to be fun. I love a good list, as you know. And I love... So let's get straight in. Honorable mentions. It's got
whoa.
Extraction's got to be there. Surely.
I'm going to cut you off here, Dan Allen movies. Welcome to Watch Mojo's Best of 2020. No. Before we get into the lists here, listeners, viewers, whoever you might be, if you're popping along to this podcast, I stumbled across something very profound and even a little bit moving in doing some research for this Best of 2020 list. And this is a quote from the late, great Roger Ebert on movies and on movies as empathy machines. Dan, try to stay awake because you might just find a nugget of gold in this. Here we go. We are all born with a certain package. We are who we are. Where we were born, who we were born as, how we were raised. We are kind of stuck inside that person. And the purpose of civilization and growth is to be able to reach out and empathize a little bit with other people. Find out what makes them tick, what they care about. For me, the movies are like a machine that generates empathy. If it's a great movie, it lets you understand a little more about what it's like to be a different gender, a different race, a different age, a different economic class, a different nationality, a different profession, different hopes, aspirations, dreams, and fears. It helps us to identify with the people who are sharing this journey with us. And that, to me, is the most noble thing that good movies can do. And it's a reason to encourage them and to support them and to go to them. Movies are like empathy machines. Let's keep that in mind as we kick off with Dan Allen movies, honorable mentions for 2020.
So I've got to put Extraction on the list. What an action film from Netflix. 100 million plays on Netflix. Incredible stats. Chris Hemsworth, my man, he's an old friend from here in Australia. Doesn't answer my calls anymore.
I wonder why.
Since he got famous. Still love him. But Extraction, and there's got to be a sequel after that stellar ending where he gets shot by about 1,000 bullets, falls off a cliff into a piling stream of water, and is he back, Jackson? I don't know, but I'm all for it. They got the oneer, you got the green tinge over the whole thing, or the yellow tinge. It's just down my alley. I really enjoyed it. So that's number 1 for me in honorable mentions.
There were a few Freudian slips there. I heard steaming pile of something, I heard green tinge. I think you might be pointing to something else that was going on with this film. I just want to put that out there. Dan, what was your next honorable mention? You can rattle them all off here.
Onward, Disney Plus, and it was a tale of two brothers, an animated film, Chris Pratt and Tom Holland. And although it didn't meet my high expectations of a Pixar film, it did leave me, there was a nice message on it. It was well animated, good for kids, funny at times. It had everything you need for a decent, good movie. So that's another one on my honorable mention list. The Devil All the Time, again, Tom Holland, this time with our man Robert Patterson. What was his line in that movie? Delusions. It was just very well acted, and even though it was a little bit slow building up to, first 45 minutes or so, once we got going and we got into that third act, it really came together and provided that payoff for me. And very disturbing world. So really enjoyed that one.
And is that 2 for 2 on Tom Holland so far?
He's 2 from 2 so far. Did he
from
have
2?
any other movies?
I don't know. You know who else might be showing up though? Robert Pattinson, Haley Bennett, and Eliza Scanlon. Let's see if they pop up again as this best of 2020 list kicks on. Anyone playing actor, actress bingo out there? Start ticking them.
Yeah, Tom Holland's a busy man. Pieces of a Woman, another honorable mention for me. First 30 minutes, couldn't believe that it was a one-shot take on a gimbal. Could not believe it when I heard that. And there was some raw emotion in that opening scene. After it did start to drag a little bit, maybe midway through. Acting powerhouse performances by everyone except Shia LaBeouf. I think he's a little bit overrated. That's my personal opinion. But I tell you what, just phenomenal. I'd be surprised if she doesn't get nominated for this. So, Pieces of a Woman just quite didn't make the top 10, but it was close. And then my last honorable mention is Freaky, which you and me went out to watch, and we had a ball, didn't we? We were laughing our asses off at this one, which we thought was going to be crap. Really. Thought it was going to be a dud. Vince Vaughn hasn't done much lately, and this is his best in years. Lots of fun. Just a good Halloween fun time, and highly rewatchable. I'd watch this again with you, and we'd still laugh. Certain scenes, you know what I'm talking about. So that is my top 5
Sure.
honorable mentions. Jackson, over to you.
What a list. Goodness, if those didn't quite make the cut, I can't wait to see what is in store from Dan Allen for his best of 2020. For me, my first honorable mention has to go to Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Pardon the pun, but it did light the world on fire way back when in January of February. It didn't make my top 10 due to it wasn't quite eligible. It didn't really come out in 2020. Not only did it have a lot of festival play in 2019, but it had its main release in 2019. Just at the end, it still saw a limited release on streaming throughout Australia, the UK, the US in 2020, and that's why it's in my honorable mentions. I know Dan was meaning to sit down and watch this. I finally did around about a month or so ago myself, and I was not disappointed. French historical drama romance film. It may not sound like it's your cup of tea, but it was gorgeous. It was very poignant, very moving, and it left an impact. So I'm just going to put it there. If
Now,
you do it, please.
You know my taste. I watched the first 20 minutes and I had to shoot off somewhere. It was no fault of the movie. You know my taste now, or you pretty well know it. How am I going to fare with this one?
Look, the movie, I wouldn't say the movie's slow. It is 2 hours. Does it feel its length? Yeah, it does at times. It's not as much of a slog as, say, The Devil All the Time, which you said was quite slow to get going, and no kidding, that really was. This is quite a straightforward story. At times, and like many of the movies on my list, it hits with all the subtlety of a hammer to the face. So you do follow and you do understand what's going on. I don't know. It left an impact on me, and
Okay.
if anything, my honorable mentions, my top 10 are all movies that left an impact on me. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But if it did make my top 10, then I'm
guessing in the third act.
Yeah, well, if 2020 has any kind of problems, it's first, second, and third act. No, but in all seriousness, I thought this paid off very, very well, and yeah, very strong performances from the two French leads, whose names I'm not even going to try and pronounce.
And by the way, I forgot to mention her name, Vanessa Kirby, who I think will win or go close at the Oscar for Pieces of a Woman.
I'm going to cut you off there because it's not the last time we're going to talk about that movie here in the show.
Okay.
On to my second honorable mention. It's not eligible because it's not really a movie, but how can we go past Hamilton? I mean, This is one of the most talked about films. We were so glad that Disney Plus bumped this up from a 2021 release on their streaming service and in theaters straight to streaming. If you haven't watched this 2 or 3 times, what are you doing? 2.5 hours long, doesn't feel a minute of its length. Awesome performances, so much fun. It's just going to absolutely rock your socks off. So we'll leave Hamilton right there. My third honorable mention, another movie that did see some wide release in 2020, not that much buzz, had more going for it in 2019, was Swallow. Haley Bennett gives a great leading performance. It feels very much in line with The Invisible Man, with some of its themes and its message. And like many of the movies that I'm going to be talking about here on this episode, it's another film sparking female empowerment and breaking out of some abusive cycle. And I really enjoyed it. It was uncomfortable at times. It told a story that that you could certainly relate to. And I just thought that all round, it didn't get enough love. It almost made the top 10, didn't quite, but Swallow is something I will recommend you go check out. Yep. Number 4, honorable mentions, Farewell Amor, which was a movie exclusive. The story of an Angolan man who has gone to the US to set up for his family. They're immigrants. They decide to join him about 15, 20 years later when they can finally come over. And sure enough, not only is he a different person, but so is his daughter, who he's barely spent any time with. His wife is a bit of a religious nut. And the story, the movie plays in 3 different parts. We get an intro to the family, and then we see pretty much the same 24, 48 hours told from each of their perspectives. And as far as stories of Angolan immigrants, or really people trying to adjust to change in a new atmosphere, a new city, again, another touching, moving film. Finally, number 5, I'll be very quick here. I mentioned this maybe in our first ever episode talking about The Way Back, and that's Richard Stanley's Color Out of Space, a cosmic horror with a gonzo Nick Cage performance. If you love Nick Cage, if you love weird horror that's just throwing everything at the screen and more with beautiful neon colors, this one is full of dread, maybe a tad too long, and you're definitely ready to check out by the time the closing credits come. But if you like your horror, you will love Color Out of Space. With
really?
that
long?
It is that long. With that, On to our top 10. Kick us off. What is your number 10 for 2020?
All right. Well, I've got a pretty solid list, just if I don't say so myself. Number 10 is going to be Sound of Metal, that sneaks in at number 10. Now, some may say this is quite low. For me, it is a must-see movie, but it was extremely slow, extremely slow, to the point where I had to deduct some points because I was checking my phone in the middle. I hate to admit it, but I was in the middle of this act. It is, it's no... The thing is, they want to show this in the most authentic and raw way. So in doing so, in a movie that can create some I don't want to say uninteresting, but more, not much excitement in some areas. So, but, it's got an amazing performances, I should say. And it really struck a chord with...
to our leads in that with Olivia Cook, Riz Ahmed, and then of course
Ahmed,
the actor who plays Joe, Paul Rucci is his name.
This is a star-making performance, I think, for Riz Ahmed, and I will expect to see him in some big movies in the next few years after this. I would be shocked if he doesn't get a nod at the Oscars for this one. Very emotional, very raw, very authentic, as I said, and that's what they were going for. It just didn't quite get that level I was hoping for. Even though the ending was quite beautiful and it was well put together, it just, it still made my top 10. Don't get me wrong, but I think it could have been higher. If they change a few things around. But yeah, So that's my number 10, Sound of Metal.
I'm not going to debate you, as the Sound of Metal is going to, or sorry, I should say, Sound of Metal is going to show up in my top 10. I'm not going to reveal there, and when it does, then we can have a little chat between you and I, Dan. I feel like sometimes your taste in movies, be it when it comes to actors, directors, you very much favor spectacle and action. And when I say action, I don't necessarily mean like gunfights. I just mean
100%.
You want that pure escapism experience of something larger than life happening on screen. But
100%.
we can go into that a little bit later. Dan, these next few picks from me, I wanted to celebrate genre movies. They don't get enough love when it comes to best of the year, because if it's like a family drama or it's a romance film, they're in everyone's top 10. So I thought, fuck it, number 10, it's The Platform.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
El Hoyo, if you didn't watch this back in Netflix in March, April, whenever it came out, what were you doing? I mean, everyone was talking about this just shit-filled movie, and we had a blast. It was so much fun to talk about. It was fun to watch. It was gross, disgusting, revolting. And in terms of social sci-fi, I don't think there was any better from 2020. So what more can you really say?
You can't forget the movie, can you, after you've watched it?
The movie. And you just have to tell someone about this film you just watched. It's so ambitious, so balls to the wall. Does it get a little bit muddled? Is there a bit too much going on for what it's trying to aim for? Sure. But the fact that, it's not the biggest budget in the world, and even just the effect of that platform coming down, which is pretty much flawless, it's crazy. And it's such a high concept that's explored fully. Like, there's nothing left on the table.
Except the panna cotta.
Except the panna cotta. And you know what? It was never about the panna cotta. Spoilers, it was always about the girl. So that's got to be number 10. I hope The Platform is going to show up somewhere in yours, but I'm not feeling too hopeful.
I'll spoil it now. It didn't make my top 10. It was just snuck out of my recommendations on my honorable mentions. Extraction just snipped it at the end, unfortunately.
Now, The Platform had Chris Hemsworth speaking Spanish.
Oh yeah, no, that would have been top 5. Yeah, easy.
Exactly.
Top 5.
I read the case. On to number 9. What have you got for us?
Number 9 is Palm Springs. What a great time that was. I know this is going to come up on yours, so I'll keep it short. Palm Springs, probably one of the best comedies of the year. I love Andy Samberg. And what was the actress's name? She's from How I Met Your Mother. Say that again.
Antonio Margaletti.
Is that her name? Wow.
Kristen Milioti.
Both had really great chemistry, a lot of fun, flew by. Number 9, Palm Springs.
Love it. I appreciate you keeping that short and sharp, because you're right. We will be returning to Palm Springs. Number 9, Dan. Another sci-fi, another horror. We saw this one together. Possessor Uncut.
Ooh. Yeah.
There's not so much more you can say. I mean, everything I kind of said for The Platform, you could almost repeat here. It's gross. It's violent.
Would you say it's high concept?
Absolutely, it's high concept.
Yeah.
It's about performing corporate assassinations by hacking into people's bodies, by kidnapping them.
Okay.
And then you finish the assassination by having them kill themselves.
Okay, yep, you've sold me.
I've sold it. There we go. Andrea Riseborough, you're never quite sure what's going on with her performance, and it really helps. Christopher Abbott, he's a freak. He is a freak. It's quite awkward to watch at first, because you're thinking, is this guy a bad actor? We just can't tell what's going on under the surface.
He's just a dead set freak.
But it just plays into the whole charm of the film. And Brandon Cronenberg, in his sophomore effort, actually puts in some great work here. So it's not quite body horror. Is it a bit Nolan horror? Yeah, you could probably argue that. If you didn't check out Possessor Uncut and you've been hearing about it with those A24 vibes, go see it, because it's a good time, but it's not fun for the whole family.
Once again, this one didn't make it, but I tell you what, it could have. I don't want to say in another director's hands, but it is just a very weird movie, and it's a very niche movie. Not many people, I don't think, will enjoy this in the larger scheme of things. it is for us. It's for the film buffs. But I'm very curious to see what he does next. Definitely. He's definitely a weird guy employing weird people to do weird movies. So
Cronenberg is absolutely going to be one to watch. And this was distributed by Neon, who put out Parasite last year, and whatever they're going to put out in 2021 will be films to watch as well.
yeah. So
Dan, right.
number 8 for me is Promising Young Woman,
Hey.
which I watched recently. Great film. Really surprised because going in, wasn't thinking much of it. I hadn't heard much buzz, to be honest, and just at the start, you're not quite sure what it is, but then it starts to take shape, and then takes a left turn about 3/4 of the way through. Just keeps you hooked the whole time, and you just don't know what's going to happen. Again, performance here from the main lead actress, which
Carrie
I've also say that again.
Carrie Mulligan.
Carrie Mulligan. I tell you what, I don't think I've seen her in a lot, but this was the film again to break. I expected to see her in a lot more after this because once again, fantastic performance, and yeah, that ending. I mean, you've seen it, Jackson, haven't you? It's you could say it's cheesy, but it worked. It worked really well.
Another film that reminds you of The Invisible Man, and these movies kind of harken back to very 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 Hitchcockian in that there's this big payoff with a murder. It's very dramatic, but holy hell, do they hit, and it lands so well in Promising Young Woman. If you want, we can keep it short because it's going to be returning in my top 10.
It's a really hard one for me to talk about for some reason, but all I can say is I really enjoyed it. So we'll talk about it later. Jackson, what's your number 8?
This is going to spark some controversy, and I wouldn't be surprised if Dan decides to end the recording right now.
Yeah, I know what it is now. Yeah.
I will preface this. The next 4 of my picks, on any given day, you could swap around the order. I mean, if you want to take this from number 8, put it to number 5, put it at number 6, put it at number 7. You can swap these all around. I couldn't settle, but here's where I landed. What else but Tenet?
All right, guys, I'll have a great podcast, and I'm calling Nick now. Nick's Flicks Fix. He's going to be replacing me.
I've actually lined up Rochelle at the movies, so you can spend
because Nick didn't like it either. So you two can go in a lighthouse and show each other your dance with each other and shit. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, of course I liked it. I thought it was great. It's coming at number 8. It's been
fair enough. It's in your top 10.
The honorable mentions. I'm not going to say too much because I know there's plenty that you want to talk about. If you didn't see Tenet last year, you were clearly living under a rock, and it's still playing now at theaters. Go see it in a movie theater. Just don't see it with anything that has overwhelming speakers because you will not catch a word. It's a movie that, in quotation marks here, air quotes, come watch us on YouTube if you want to get the full experience. You're meant to experience, and it is a spectacle. It could get higher points if it was a bit more comprehensible. We still don't really know what was going on with the plot, and I don't think it's ever going to be able to be explained. Maybe
I've watched it 6 times. I know everything that happened.
You might think you know what happened, but it still doesn't make a lick of sense. And you know what? That's okay. As far as action's concerned, you're not going to get much better out of 2020 than that. Extraction can suck a fat one because Tenet did come in and blew everything out of the water. I'll leave it there as far as Tenet's concerned. You're going to have far more thoughts. Dan, what's number 7?
Number 7 is Invisible Man. Now, it feels so long ago that we saw this thing because it was back pre-COVID. But I tell you what, I got an advanced screening to this one with a good mate of mine, Tommy Lucas. Shout out to him. We're actually watching a movie with him after this recording. The Marksman, Liam Neeson.
If we ever make it to said movie.
If we ever make it. Invisible Man was the best horror of the year, in my opinion. And Elizabeth Moss, great job directing. Lee Winnell. He's done 2 great films now for me, Upgrade and Invisible Man. Give this guy a bigger budget, let him loose. He's got what it takes. He's an Aussie. He helped create Saw, if not the most iconic horror franchise, or one of. Maybe not the most, but one of. He's got what it takes, and again, it's got its faults, we all know, but again, it hits on those moments that I always talk about, and that there is action in this, but you think about the dinner table scene. Moments like that, that's what I want to see in a theater. The moments where you go, oh my God, that's what I want to see in a theater, and this delivered multiple times. So, number 7, Invisible Man.
It was lacking a bit in that third act. I
respectfully disagree.
Whoever this actor's name was, I cannot remember, that played the Invisible Man. I felt like by that point, it was a bit disappointing, and it could have been something tighter. I will say Elizabeth Moss did fantastic, and
his name's Olivia Jackson Cohen. I believe the two are dating. I think they are.
There you go. They didn't have a heck of chemistry. That mental hospital sequence ripped straight from T2 Judgment Day. That's probably one of my favorites from 2020, even if the film didn't quite make the cut for me. Number 7 over here, Marshall on film. It's Da 5 Bloods.
Yeah.
It was a very good. It was actually a great movie. It was far too long. We had 2 pretty great performances. Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, and Delroy Lindo, who, when this movie came out, was the surefire shot for Best Actor, and he could still make a case for it. Had some pretty good acting towards the end, but look, it wasn't a movie for everyone, and if you weren't willing to stick it out, especially past those first 35, 40 minutes, which Dan Allen movies almost didn't, I can't really blame you. For me, though, it was everything that I wanted, and it couldn't come out at a better time. Another one of those very pertinent movies throughout 2020 as far as politics and race and things like that are concerned. So it was a great film. Is it Spike Lee's best? Probably not. Do the Right Thing, Black Klansman, 25th Hour, maybe all eclipse it, but it still comes in at number 7.
For me, it comes in at number 6, surprisingly. It, like you said, I think the common factor I am just seeing now, reading out the list here, all these movies have a star. I don't know if there's a correlation there, but a lot of the movies on my top 10 have a breakout performance or a star-making performance. So, yeah, Delroy Lindo just killed it, man. I was bored in the first 30 minutes. You remember getting a text from me saying, God, can we turn this off? I don't want to watch it. Thank God I stuck it through. The second half is brilliant. Brilliant. 9 out of 10 sort of stuff. It just gets let down by the first half being very, very slow. But
it's let down by a 156-minute runtime.
It is, yeah.
And even towards the end, when Delroy Lindo has some of those madcap sequences that you said, I mean, it is like a star-solidifying performance. It's crazy. This guy's presence is fantastic. But do we need so many of them? Did it have to be such a trek to get there? We'll shut out. And you're probably going to say it, but that sequence with jumping off the mines was something else.
Yeah, that's a 10 out of 10 scene.
Most tense sequence of 2020.
And also RIP to Chadwick Boseman, who was also great in this as well. Didn't get a lot of screen time, but when he was in it, he was commanding the screen. So that is my number 6.
Love it. What a silky smooth segue that was. You are a fan of those. Number 6 for Marshall on film, Pieces of a Woman.
Wow.
Dan, you said it. Those first 30 minutes, I think if anyone's review anywhere will speak about those first 30 minutes, is completely jaw-dropping stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All filmed in a single take. Vanessa Kirby and Shia LaBeouf and the, oh goodness, I cannot believe I forgot this actress's name. Molly Parker playing the nurse is pretty full-on.
Can I butt in here? The first 30 minutes... You don't even know Shia LaBeouf's there. This is what I'm saying, overrated. He's just completely lost in the scene. The other two are just completely destroying him, in my opinion.
You might say overrated, and Shia LaBeouf is, I mean...
He's the same character in every film.
For close to 2 decades now, he he probably could call him overrated, and he hasn't been the most popular figure for a variety of reasons. Right now, here at the end of January in 2021, while we're recording, some more news has come to light about how he's treated ex-girlfriends and this and that, similar to what's happening with the Armie Hammer situation. And we're not going to go into the specifics here. I'm going to argue the opposite. I believe Shia LaBeouf in this movie was completely underrated. The fact that you, in air quotes, didn't notice him, I feel like that's actually
there. It could have been you and me.
That's his performance as it could have been you and me. That's his performance as Sean, is that he's meant to be this man he's trying to do the right thing to build a family, and he just can't quite do it. But the ad lib between him and Vanessa Kirby, he's telling those jokes, none of that's in the script. I thought this was just great. And I have read, and you said it as well, I've read, seen, and heard that after that first 30 minutes, the rest of the film can't carry its momentum. I'm going to argue that it actually did. And it is heartbreaking. It's a tearjerker. It's gonna really bring you down to earth. But for me, it did work. And when we finally have Vanessa Kirby as Martha Weiss on that witness stand towards the end, you're going to shed a tear. So prepare to bring the tissues.
Look,
quick shout out as well. Any movie that has Benny Safdie in it, it's going to get a thumbs up.
Yeah, that was random. Was that just because it was shot in New York and the guy just apparently any movie in New York, he's in it?
Who knows? It's got such a bizarre cast. I mean, I've found out that Martin Scorsese is one of the executive producers. But even Sarah Snook shows up and just has this kind of minor role when she's sleeping with Shia LaBeouf's character.
I have to disagree with Shia LaBeouf. I think he plays the same character in every film I've seen him in. The exact same dopey character who's either poor or down on his luck and has a mumble. But
that's him. That's what you're casting for. I believe having this guy who's like a recovering alcoholic, smoker, potentially drug addict. Oh, he is a drug addict. It's perfect casting. It's inspired casting. I think it works.
Unfortunately, and also, besides that scene you just talked about on the stand, which I agree, I just don't think it was earned because I'd never believed she was on the other side of that argument anyway. I always thought that's what she was going to say. So it wasn't really like, oh, I'm shocked you're saying this. There was no payoff. I felt like the movie peaked so early and then it was just a slow decline all the way to the end with a little peak.
Dan, I feel like you're missing the point. It wasn't that we were meant to be shocked by her decision. It was about a woman coming to grips with her decision. And
I thought she was already to grips with it, in my opinion.
Like Vanessa Kirby's character, do you not get this feeling that she'd accepted that she was up to this step in her journey as a human, as a woman, to be a mother, and having that stripped away, she'd lost her way. And she wasn't sure of herself for the remainder of the film until she took the stand. She had her mother, Ellen Bernstein, making decisions for her. To an extent, Shia LaBeouf playing Sean was trying to make decisions for her. Everyone else was trying to butt in and give their opinion. And it wasn't until the very end on that witness stand when it was like, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we want to hear. And it landed. It fucking landed.
But I thought she already come to grips that it wasn't the maid's fault or the nurse's fault. So,
for sure. She had, but
from the start, you know?
Yeah, all right. I feel like we could debate. We're gonna cover this film in. I just think
it's a big letdown, a really big letdown for an amazing performance from her. Number 5 for me.
Best actress worthy?
Oh, I think she might just miss out or just sneak in. One of the two.
Okay.
She's borderline. If there's 5 nominees, she's borderline 5 to 6. Just depends which way they go. Number 5 for me is Bad Education. My man Hugh Jackman had to make the top 5. Just snuck in. This movie came out again early in the year, HBO Max. And this sort of story usually wouldn't appeal to me. I'd be bored shitless. But somehow these two...
Well, you put Hugh Jackman in the movie and you're going to turn it on.
Seriously. It's seriously that easy. He just rocks it and it just flies by. And it's not that it's not really that it's funny or that there's a lot of action, or it doesn't go one way or another. It's got a bit of everything. And I think that's what I like about it, where you just sort of get a bit of everything throughout it. And Ray, what's his name? Ray Romano. God, I can't even talk. Ray Ramone is in the film.
He's in the film. How insightful. I'm so
How
glad.
insightful. No. What
This is
I'm
the
trying to
character
say
of
is he's
listen,
in the
he's-
film. I haven't seen him in anything since I was 5. So that was good to see. It's not in your top 10, is it? Which I think's a shame.
It's not in my top 10.
Yeah,
It was
I
almost going to make the honorable mentions. And look, Dan, had you and I gone back and watched some of these films, we probably would have reshuffled these top 10s. It just didn't make as much of a lasting impact as some other stuff. And Alison Janney, I thought she gave quite a good performance as well. Let's not just talk about Hugh. He had quite a good leading lady.
Both of them were rocking performance.
She could be up for a best supporting nod because it was a pretty good movie.
Well, you know what they're like at the Academy. If you go too early, they forget about you. So they might, if this movie came out a month ago, different story probably. They're both in the conversation. It's one of those, unfortunately, that's why a lot of these movies come out towards the end of the year. It really is. They try and ride off the coattails of the Oscars, and it's proven to work.
It's Oscar season. That's a Harvey Weinstein move from back in the day. When you're going to start your Oscar campaign, your movie is going to come out in November, so they can ride that shit all the way up to Feb. And while we're here talking about it, we're not going to get the Oscars until April at this point. And who knows if any of these movies we're talking about are going to get nominations? Is it just going to be everything that's coming out now in Feb? Probably.
Yeah, 100%. It's a real weird one. Really weird one. But it is true that, if you're nominated for that Best Picture, the box office, you do get a kick up the arse. That's just how it is, especially if you win. If you win a lot of awards at the Oscars, you get a big kick. So that's why they do it.
Yeah, there's probably still some theatre out there right now playing Parasite.
Number 5, Jackson.
Promising Young Woman.
Yeah.
You've already shared a lot of these points. As a male watching this in the theater alone, I must say it's another one of those very uncomfortable experiences.
That's a weird experience.
At times you're made to feel a little bit ashamed of the gender that we are.
Do you feel dumb as a male after this one?
Oh, it feels a bit icky. You know what though? I'm glad that we had that kind of film, another female empowerment movie. And it was a fun time throughout. It was cool to see Christopher Mintz-Plasse, aka McLovin from back in the day, still getting some work. He had a nice little role in there.
Good.
And Carey Mulligan.
He did not look good. I would almost say that this movie didn't have a single good male character. I don't think it did. Not one good male character.
I'm going to argue.
All of them were assholes.
Bo Burnham, who was hilarious throughout and could easily slip into that kind of Bill Hader or Jason Segel role, although from what I've seen, he's far more talented behind
Jason
the camera.
Jason Segel? What are you... that guy was dead 10 years ago in Hollywood. What's he been in recently? Sorry to cut you off.
I haven't got any clue either, but hey, maybe he's got a family. I'm sure he's a very, very busy dude. But yeah, like Bo Burnham is pretty hilarious. We have Alison Brie show up. We even have Chris Lowell who shows up at the very end. So some of that cast and crew from Glow, which is a very underrated TV series. And this movie, you're just never quite sure where it's going to go. And Carey Mulligan gives quite a complex performance. She's flipping back and forth between these almost different identities, different personalities. It's pretty wild. And you said it, Dan, it's got an ending that is sure to leave an impact. Some part of me didn't quite fully agree with it, but it still felt like a natural conclusion. It just wasn't the ending you were hoping for. You wanted to see something different happen. And the fact that it didn't, it's quite brave. Like the rest of the movie, it's very, very brave.
I was shocked when the pillow came out. But anyway, number 4 for me. Now, you said it doesn't qualify. For me, it does. Hamilton.
Hey!
Number 4. Yeah. I had to put it in because if there's any songs I've replayed all year, Alexander Hamilton, I am not throwing away my shot. I'll be back. Time will tell. So I flogged those songs. You can ask my girlfriend. She knows them all off by heart now. thanks to me. But besides that, the spectacle, 2.5 hour theatre performance, to me sounds boring unless you're in the theatre. And I am going to see this in Sydney this year, hopefully, if all goes well.
Touch wood, whatever you can do, buddy. Touch wood now.
Yeah, touch wood. But, watching it on TV to me didn't sound appealing. So I went in, hesitative, although it was getting rave reviews. So that was in the back of my mind. And then you just get hit song after hit song. And the actual story of it is intriguing, even though I'm not really a big fan of that era, to be honest. It's not something that usually tickles my fancy. So very shocked, very surprised how much I liked Hamilton. And yeah, maybe not a movie. I'm going to still put it number 4.
I don't even think Americans have cared more about their own history, about their founding fathers before Hamilton came out, let alone us here in Australia.
I know, right?
Goodness, what a whole lot of fun. And yeah, Dan, I tell you what, you said you weren't looking forward to watching a theatre film at home or a musical at home. I was not looking forward to watching a 2.5 hour picture, but sure enough, it sucked me in and I sat through that 1 minute intermission.
Yeah, wow.
On to number 4, The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Yeah.
This was one of the year's better films. We're in the tail end here of my list. What a cast. What a script. What a story. I don't know how much of it was true. I don't really care. I just thought it hit on all cylinders. Everyone was fantastic. Sacha Baron Cohen was great. Now I've forgotten the rest of the cast. John Carroll Lynch was great. Eddie Redmayne was great. And of course, the standout. How could he not be your standout? Mark Rylance. The guy is just absolutely killing it. The most understated performance, but truly was the glue that held everything together. And anything that has Michael Keaton showing up in almost 2 hours into the film to just steal the whole show is 2 thumbs up right there. Another very prescient and pertinent movie to come out alongside The Five Bloods in 2020. And yeah, sometimes you just got to stand up for what you believe in. And Dan, I'm going to stand up and say it. Aaron Sorkin is a good writer-director.
He's a good writer. And that's where the movie fell flat for me. Wasn't his movie to direct, unfortunately. And just...
I feel like the Academy are going to be...
It was all a little bit boring for me, to be honest. Just was a little bit boring. As simple as that. I hate to put it in mundane terms, but to me it was just a little bit boring. I think I still gave it a 7 though, so that just goes to show how good the writing is. Although I'm contradicting myself, but I better shut up. Number 3 for me is Minari. What a film, Jackson. Have you seen it?
You've seen this, have you?
I have. Have you?
I have not seen Minari.
Well, it is... you know what? You talk about rearranging lists. This could easily... Well, it's not going to get number 1, but it could easily get moved to 2. Sorry, there's spoiler for you. Yeah, it's just a beautifully told story. Stephen from The Walking Dead, who I love, he was in another brilliant film called Burning, which you've got to watch. This guy picks beautiful films. And what's so funny, guys? Who did this film? Who was the distributor? A24. As much as we bag them, they do pick some very, very good pictures. This one's just beautifully told. A family. It's pretty much the American dream in a movie, and I love that. I absolutely love that. So I don't want to give too much away, but you got to watch this, Jackson, ASAP, because I think this will be your top 3 easy, 100%. And while we're on that, there are some movies we haven't seen. Like I haven't seen Nomadland in 2020. I haven't seen. There's plenty of films. That's the only one.
I'll give you a quick rundown.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to show up, so I'm not going to speak more about it. I haven't seen Soul. I'm surprised you've seen Minari. I know you're looking forward to seeing The Father. Another round.
Father, yeah.
In the coming weeks here in Australia, so we're going to see that. The Small Axe film series by Steve McQueen is available, but we haven't checked that out yet. St. Maud is still to come. You've been hanging at that for what feels like well over 12 months now. The Vast and Night, The Assistant, The Nest is coming. First Cow we haven't seen, and Never Really, Sometimes Always. These are all films that we've seen on other Best of 2020 lists. You're not going to see them here, but when we look at the year in retrospect, maybe in 12 months, 24 months, whenever we happen to look back, maybe they'll show up then. On to number 3, for me, had to be Palm Springs. It was just one of the year's most fun films, most charming movies. You knew how much I was surprised by this. You said how funny Andy Samberg was, but Kristen Milioti, for me, absolutely stole the show. It was her movie to win. She took over as the audience avatar. And it was at times a tragic and profound experience. And in terms of a concept of a time loop film, which we thought had been done to dead with something like Groundhog Day, it still felt fresh. J.K. Simmons even shows up for a cup of coffee, and how that guy doesn't have the most credits ever on IMDb, I still do not know. And it just tied a beautiful bow and kind of captured what it is to be like stuck in that kind of nihilistic view as you move from your 20s into your 30s. And it's going to be one to rewatch for years to come. Plus, seeing as it came out in June during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, it could not have hit Amazon Prime at a better time.
Number 2 for me is going to be Soul. One of the best Pixar films I've ever seen. Unbelievable.
That covers a lot of ground.
Not the best, but it's up there, top 5 probably. It's an amazing film. It is actually more for adults than kids, in my opinion. This was a film that was watched by 1.7 billion hours or something, about 500 million streams, some crazy number. It's broken records, unbelievable. And yes, how many kids are replaying it, I don't know. But that's the thing. It's made for adults, but kids can also watch it. It is just a beautiful piece of work. And look, I hope it gets nominated for an Oscar. I really do. For not just Best Animated, which it'll win. Put your money on it right now. I mean, there's no other... nothing else is winning. This is winning, 100%. I'll bet the house on it.
Shaney, did you hear that?
But, Jamie Foxx, looking at his IMDb, very interesting IMDb. He's done a lot of character roles, and this just stands out for me as one of his best. And I hope, going back to the Oscars, I hope it actually gets nominated for Best Picture. Which I think it should. I believe they're doing 10 now. Is that right? They're doing 10 nominees from now on for Best Picture, which surely this fits in. But yeah, it's just a very mature story, and it just the deeper themes at play here really hit home with me in the last 20 minutes. Very emotional. So yeah, it's just an awesome film. You got to watch it.
Should I feel disappointed that I missed it before?
Yeah, you should, because it is going to make your top 10. I think this and Minari will make your top 10, but that doesn't... Hey, that's nothing against the films you got on your list. 100%. Although, I think Possessor and what was your 10th? Platform, they may get kicked out in the end. But you know what? So same with me. I haven't seen The Father. I haven't seen Nomad. We can't watch them all, so...
I have seen Nomadland, and you would have noticed it did make my honorable mentions. It did make my top 10. It was almost going to make an honorable mention, but I want to give some love.
So why is it everyone's top 10? What are we missing?
Well, I think for something like Nomadland, we're missing about 40 years of tread on our tires. I'll say that much.
Okay.
So, yeah. Dan, if you want to go see it, sure, absolutely. But some criticisms you've had of some other movies on my list, it's probably going to be repeated there.
If you think it's slow, then I've got no chance.
It's not that it's slow. It's just nothing really ever happens because that's not what the movie is.
Even better. Slow and boring.
It's a realistic portrayal of dealing with a crisis and what that can do to people, particularly those later in life, maybe those who have lost something, they've lost a loved one. And like I said, when you got more tread on the tires, I think that kind of thing's going to speak to you. I don't know about you, Dan, but I've definitely had days where I thought all I want to do is just throw everything in the car and go.
Yeah.
And that has to be something universal. That's got to speak to people.
Is that what she does in the film?
Maybe you watch it. Listeners, considering it's going to be up there for a chance at Oscar, just go see Nomadland. You could do a heck of a lot worse. You could watch Extraction for the 10th time, like Dan. On to number 2. This could be number 1. You could flip these 2 round, but here we go. Sound of Metal.
Yeah, okay.
It was an emotional experience for me. We've already said it. Riz Ahmed is likely a lock for Best Actor. You look at this guy's filmography so far for what he's been a part of and the work he's put in. 4 Lions, Nightcrawler, Rogue One, now this. He's an actor just waiting to break out. He's on the cusp, and I feel like he's done it here. I just couldn't believe just how emotionally moving this film was. The entire third act, I believe, from when Ruben goes to visit Lou in France, I was moved to tears. And for that final 30 minutes of the 2-hour runtime, I just could not stop crying. It was just a movie about how we cope with
Really? Okay.
Yeah, a movie just how we cope with change, how we learn to leave some things behind to better ourselves. I know I'm not being the most eloquent with my words here, and this movie deserves far better.
Well, it's funny because I didn't cry once in this film. So
maybe it was just that early onset tinnitus ringing true for me, just like it did for Riz. He's out there drumming, everything goes silent, and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm having some PTSD right now. And
yeah.
you can't tell me that moment at the very end. He takes his
I love that moment. I love it.
I can't remember what they're called with the in-ears when he takes them off and we just get total silence. Like, you must have felt it.
That's amazing. That's a great moment. That is an amazing moment when he takes it off and he would rather have silence than that terrible noise. It's just
and
it just ties a very nice knot on the film.
And I mean, for a third act, for the fact that all of a sudden he can just get himself over to France willy-nilly, like we think he's just he's traveled to another city, but he's actually flown halfway across the world. God only knows how. Ruben has Riz Ahmed's character. From when he meets Lou's father, Lou played by Olivia Cook, pretty much from that scene on, from when he's sitting there with the father, is when I was broken. That broke my heart. Her father says to Ruben, thank you for looking after her. I never liked you. I never trusted you. And it was just like, it just hit me. It hit me so well. It was so perfect.
Okay. Maybe it's a personal thing for you.
It was. As a movie, like I said it earlier when I was talking about movies as empathy machines and that great Roger Ebert quote, that's what this was for me. And everyone in the cast was just amazing. I'm sorry, but
I'm keen to hear your number 1. I actually don't know what it is, but it'll all come together very soon. I really hope it's not Mank. My number 1.
Your number 1.
My number 1. I mean, let's have a guess here, guys. It's a tough one. I mean, I could have predicted this before I even saw the movie.
We could have predicted this back in March when we started the podcast.
Pretty much, yeah. No, Tenet's number 1 for me. Very, very easy pick. Just had everything. I've talked to death about it. I'm not going to go on about it again. All I'll say is, if you haven't seen it, see it.
Words.
It's the best action film of the year. It's the best Nolan action film he's ever done. Well, yeah, I would say that. It's the best soundtrack of the year. It's the best mindfuck of the year. It's got everything that I want in a film. Brilliant. And you know what? I gave it a 9. I might give it a 10.
It's got 10 in the title. How could you not?
Exactly.
He was setting himself up.
Yeah, Tenet at number 1, and I don't think anything's taking it off the mantle. Jackson, I'm keen to hear your number 1. Just tell me it's not Mank.
It's Baby Teeth.
Wow, I forgot to... Yeah, anyway, I completely forgot about that film. Oh shit! Oh no! But that's a good time to remember. We've just done the top 10. This is a complete shit show. Fucking hell! Oh, Baby Teeth! Wow.
Dad tells me he's been working on this best of list all year. He even went back today, spent some more time reflecting on it.
You know why? Because I watched it in January.
What, you watched it this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. So, no, I completely agree. It's in my top 10. stuff whatever I've just said, I'd have it in the top 5. I'd have it in the top 5. It's phenomenal. Oh yeah, what a tearjerker.
Everything I just said about Sound of Metal, you can take it and you can apply it to this film too. It's a movie that's gonna get you up off the couch, out of the cinema. It's actually gonna inspire you to go live life. And the more I reflect on it, the more I feel this is pretty much a flawless film. Like the leads, Eliza Scanlon, Toby Wallace, who is just mind blowing throughout the entire film, Essie Davis, and your man Ben Mendelsohn. It's just
It's his best performance ever.
you cannot talk. You just there's not enough. There's not enough. There's not enough time in the world to mention all the hyperboles about this movie. It's actually that good. It is that good.
Yeah, no, I agree, man.
Perfect use of 2 hours. The film's denouement, where we have Miller talking to Henry on the beach, like prepared to be broken in ways you didn't even know were possible. I remember sitting there thinking, I know exactly what's going on here, and still just felt it right there in my heart, in my gut, in every part of my body.
You knew what was coming, but it still gets you.
Yeah. And you know what? It was still unpredictable, but it was still a satisfying payoff.
Mm.
I know we're being quite vague.
You love the opening, the ending shot of the waves.
Oh, the waves, the trees, the butterflies. Oh my god, I'm
Getting
feeling
emotional.
Yeah. But it wasn't. It never felt like it was deliberately trying to pull at your heartstrings.
No, not at all. Very authentic.
Yeah, there was that scene on the beach, but it was genuine. It was earned. You said it. It was authentic. Every frame of this was just. It was fantastic, and you never knew it was going to go. It had awesome set design, awesome costumes. For a movie that wasn't very big budget, filmed here in Australia, New South Wales, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to put it at number 1. It was, oh god,
Yeah.
it was.
So my executive decision is I've got it at number 2, just above Soul.
It's gone from not making the list to number 2.
No, yeah, it's definitely, it's number 2 for me. Completely forgot about it. That's my bad, but it's a must-see movie. And I think we had a screener for this one for so long, and we just held off, didn't we?
We did. And I actually made the effort to go catch this at the theaters, which it wasn't anywhere nearby, and I'm so glad I did because
Is it technically a 2020 film, Jackson? Because I'm
It's a
looking
great
at Letterboxd has it at 2019.
Well, when I thought about this list, I thought, what's eligible and like what defines best of 2020? And if it's a movie that had wide release in theaters or on streaming in 2020, it counted. So while this may have debuted at the Venice International Film Festival, it competed for the Golden Lion, which goes to tell you about its quality and just the belief that people had in this project. It did see a bigger release in both the US and Australia here in 2020 back in July. So, like, you know, I thought, okay, it's going to count. It's going to count.
Okay. Yeah, no, what an emotional movie. I think if anything's going to get the tears going in 2020, that's the movie, isn't it? So
you're not human if this movie doesn't speak to you.
Yeah.
And 100%. Eliza Scanlon had a pretty fantastic, 2019 and 2020 for her. Like, where was she not killing it? Little Women, Baby Teeth. She even showed up in The Devil All the Time. Both her and Haley had some pretty red hot 12 months.
You do have to be in the mood for this one. Very depressing film. Like, it does get happier. Like, there is some joy in it. Don't get me wrong, and that's why we like it, because it isn't all depressing, but the underarching theme is very depressing. You know, it's cancer, so it's the worst thing in the world. So it is inherently going to be depressing.
It's also a part of growing up. Here I've got coming of age comedy drama, and it does. You feel you're on this journey with Miller as she grows up, and the really tragic part is that she has to grow up in a very short amount of time. But that time, how she chooses to spend it, how she lives, if she can do that, you know, barely at the age of 16, 17, however old she might be in the film, you can't tell me, Dan Allen Movies, you sitting there right now in your chair, age 27, and me sitting in my chair, age 27, we're thinking, what the fuck have we done with our lives?
Yeah, no. It makes you get up and live, which is what you want. That's what Walter Mitty did for me as well. Similar, very different film, but it makes you want to get out there and just get going, live it to the best way you can. So, we've got pretty good lists. I mean, mine's a little bit more ad hoc than we were once hoping, but
Just a little bit. Yeah, they stripped the whole thing away.
do you want to go through yours 10-1 one more time?
The Platform, Possessor Uncut, Tenant, To Five Bloods, Pieces of a Woman, Promising Young Woman, The Trial of the Chicago 7, Palm Springs, Sound of Metal, Baby Teeth.
My top 11 now is Sound of Metal, Palm Springs, Promising Young Woman, The Invisible Man, Bad Education, To Five Bloods, Bad Education, Hamilton, Minari, Soul, Baby Teeth, and Tenet. Pretty good list. I think mine's a little bit better, but that's a bit biased. Thanks as always, guys. Jackson, where can the listeners find us?
Listeners, viewers, audiences, if you've just stumbled across this podcast for the first time, we welcome you to follow us at We Watch This Podcast. You will find us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Most of all, you'll find us on YouTube in video form. Come watch us, hang out, shoot the shit, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon. You'll find out when all of our latest videos are going live. We've just redone our entire YouTube channel. Give it some love, drop a comment, even head on over to our excellent editor's channel, Dan Allen Gaming. He's got some interesting video interviews coming up with some actors, and I know he'll appreciate that plug. To wrap things up here, he is Dan Allen Movies. I am Marshall on Film. This has been the best of 2020. See you next week when we cover the worst of 2020.